so proud. Where are my fellow Slytherins at? It is 8:30 at night. It is dark out, so my lighting is awful. I've got all the lights on in my room. I've just had a shower, so I'm clean faced, look like shit. Hair's still a bit wet underneath. But I've been waiting for a free moment to film my next book review for 13 by Steve Kavanagh. Kavanagh? I would pronounce that as Kavanagh. Kavanagh. So 13. A ruthless prosecutor, a brilliant defence lawyer, a defendant with a secret, and a serial killer on the jury. The murder trial of the century is here. This was my first time reading a book that is based from a lawyer's perspective and it's set in a courtroom. Normally I'm used to reading like mysteries that are like from the perspective of like police investigators or maybe civilians that just happen to become involved in a case. But this was my first time reading a book that's actually based in a courtroom from the perspective of like a lawyer. That was new to me. I am so fascinated by like Law and Order and how it works. So, and I don't know much about it, really. I know, you know, kind of basics from watching like crime TV shows and that. I love Law and Order, the TV. But it was my first time ever reading a book set in a courthouse. And I loved it. It was so detailed, it was so well done, to the point that although it was going really in depth with how the law worked, and it was so good at explaining how things worked, maybe like how they couldn't use this evidence or how they couldn't bring this up in court, that all that kind of stuff that we normal people don't really understand. So I really enjoyed it for that reason. I really enjoyed just, I suppose, learning about law and just seeing how it works. So most of the book is told from the perspective of our main character, Eddie. Now, when I first saw this book, I can't remember where, if I read about it in like maybe an article, or I just remember it was a book I'd seen and I thought I wanna read that, I wanna get it, and then I saw it one day in a bookshop and I was like, I'm gonna get it, so I bought it. And so I didn't know much about it. It just kind of, it fascinated me. The serial killer is on trial, he's on the jury. I was like, oh, what's the tea? What is the tea there? So that had me interested, so I bought it. And it sat on a bookshelf for a while and I finally got around to reading it. I'm suffering from a cold right now, so I feel like absolute crap and my voice is just... That was a horrible noise I just made. Also, it was my birthday the other day. I officially turned 23 and nobody likes you when you're 23, so... Anyway, back to the book. So I picked it up and not knowing much about it, and it wasn't until after I'd finished, or I don't know if I was still reading it and I happened to like flick to the back and I saw like, oh, the main character is returning in a new book called The Liar. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, so like it's carrying on. But then the more I kind of flicked through it, I was like, wait a minute, there is more. I think it turned out to be that this is the 4th book in a series of like about the main character, Eddie Flynn, and I was shocked by it. It was so, in a way, it was done in a way that really you didn't need to read the other books. You could, and I'd quite like to, because I'm kind of fascinated now to read more, especially more about the same character, because I loved the main character quite a lot. It was quite enjoyable that I could read this book without feeling like I was missing something, like I was missing out on a joke, or there was stuff being talked about that I didn't understand. It touched on a couple of things that I realised now were probably part of like the other books, but at the same time it was also pretty well explained. It's kind of like if you picked up the 4th Harry Potter and you're just told to read it out of context, and they maybe drop hints about the Philosopher's Stone or the Chamber of Secrets or Prisoner of Azkaban, and you're kind of like, wait, what the hell is it talking about? Stuff like that. So it wasn't, but it was actually pretty easy. It was pretty easy to like read, having not read the other books in the series. So brownie points for that. Our character Eddie Flynn, is a lawyer, and you can tell right away from his first little case that we see that he's very good. Hugo Mayo. He's then approached by another lawyer asking him if he'll come and basically, I forget what the actual term is, there is a proper term for it, but basically join his defense party. I'm not quite sure. But basically, in the court, there's this guy called Rudy. He's like the main defense lawyer for a client. And Eddie will also be a lawyer for him. But Rudy's like the main lawyer. I take it Eddie's kind of job on this as like I forgot the word. Eddie's job as the client's lawyer is basically all about going along the lines of police corruption, or the police trying to blame the defendant for killing his wife and the head of his security, and he's to go down the angle of the police are setting him up and framing him for it. That way, if the jury doesn't believe it, if they can't get the proper proof that they need to prove that, then Rudy can fire Eddie from his... It's really bugging me that I can't remember what... Like, his team... I'm pretty sure there's like an official name for like a group of lawyers on like a defense team. And like on the prosecution side, like I forget if they've got an actual name. Are they just a team? I don't know. Anyway, but they could fire Eddie, and then their defense wouldn't suffer for having blamed and going after the police. You still with me? Complicated, but I understood what they meant. So our character Eddie, and he teams up with a few friends of his that he knows, and they decide they believe the defendant, even though all the evidence does seem to point that he did kill his wife and his head of security. So Eddie and his pals, I forget their names, oh my god, I literally just finished this book. So Eddie gets in touch with some friends of his that are private investigators I think one of them's ex-FBI, all people in the line of law and order. And they decide that they believe the defendant is innocent, and they're going to find a way of proving that he is innocent and find the real killer. A few little things happen throughout. Something kind of major happens that disrupts the defense team, but Eddie steps up. As well as chapters told from the perspective of Eddie, we also get some chapters told from the perspective of a character named Joshua Kane. We meet Joshua Kane in the very first chapter. He is living as a homeless person in New York. It's based in New York, on the streets of New York. And he is watching a mailman for the past, I think it's like 6 weeks or something. He's dedicated. Joshua Kane is a very complex, very interesting character. I was so gripped by him. I loved his chapters. I didn't really love them, if that makes sense. They made me uneasy, but it was done in a way that was I'm not saying you sympathised with him, but no, you definitely didn't sympathise with him, but it was very much like, you know, he has a problem psychologically, and you're basically just learning and understanding. I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah. It started off with quite a okay pace. I was definitely interested the whole way through. There was never really a moment where I was bored of it or anything. I think I read like, I was reading it, it took me a week to read it because I was reading just like a couple of chapters at a time. You know, as you do with like books, unless there's something really absolutely gripping that happens in the very first pages, I feel it does take a wee minute just to get into a new book, especially after you've like just finished one. So, you know, I was just kind of going along with it, just seeing what was happening. And then I got about halfway through it, and that's when it was getting like really exciting. Like once the trial started, and it was just all so exciting, and just all the different ways that Eddie was trying to prove how his client was innocent, and this whole time, you know, you're kind of like, oh my god, so what happened? How was it done? Kind of thing. So I was excited the whole way through, just to see the outcome, and then plot twists kept happening, and one minute you think you know who the killer is, and then it's not that person, and it's just I don't know, it just there was so many different things happened in that kind of, from that like about the halfway point onwards, that I was just like, oh my god. So then I ended up like finishing like the rest of it in a day because I was just so gripped by it, and I just had to know what was gonna happen. I was so excited, and the ending, it did not disappoint. I think the only kind of negative I would have about the ending was that it did have a bit of a kind of slow-ish pace, and then all of a sudden at the end, once we kind of realised everything and realised what was happening, it just stepped up, especially the FBI, because like to begin with, the FBI were kind of hesitant about getting involved. There was like legal reasons they couldn't get involved. All of a sudden in the end, they were fully all together, deploying SWAT teams and everything. So that was about the only thing I think kind of threw me off guard. It went from like 0 to 100 real quick, that everything was just happening, and so that kind of it just had me, it was quite a lot just all of a sudden in one go, that I was just kind of like, oh my god, what is happening? Christine. It's 356 pages long, so somebody else could probably read it in no time. I only took a week because, like I said, I was only reading a few chapters at a time, and then I just sporadically read half the book in a day because I was just gripped and had to know what happened. It was definitely a very interesting read. I love that it didn't, this sounds so stupid, but it's a big deal to me. I love that it didn't have any unnecessary love stories. There's something about love stories in a book, like especially when I'm reading like a book like this, that I'm reading it for the mystery, the crime, the characters, the plot. Whenever I read a book, and if there's just like love thrown into it, like if the chemistry's there, then okay, that is fair enough. If I'm feeling it, yep, I'm rooting for it. But when it comes from like two characters, then you just feel like, especially if it takes over, I hate that. Keeper Lost Things, I am looking at you, girl. So I love that. There was like no actual, I mean, maybe a little bit of chemistry, but it wasn't over the top, and it didn't take over the story. Like the action didn't stop just so our protagonist could go out for dinner with a potential love interest. You know what I mean? I would definitely give this book a 5 out of 5. I'm very generous when it comes to book reviews, but for definite, 5 out of 5. It was good. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was very interesting, and like I said, I've never read books from a courtroom before, about trials, and because it was so detailed, and even though it's from like a country that I don't live in, it's in New York, so it's in America, even though it's not from a country that I live in, so the law will be different, it's still interesting. It's so interesting to learn about. And the author is actually a lawyer. I think he's Irish. Belfast, yeah. Studied law. I'll tell you something else I loved. I loved that Joshua Caines, when you get where his message is coming from, and his idea of the American dream is a lie, and he references The Great Gatsby because The Great Gatsby is his favourite book, and The Great Gatsby is one of my favourites. I absolutely love the movie. I read the book last year and I really enjoyed it, so I love that. That was nice for me. I really want to arrange my bookshelf, going by colour. So far it's a bit kind of, got my Game of Thrones. These, from here to here, are the books I still need to read. These are books I've already read. There's more back there. I need to get myself a bigger bookcase because this is just, it's so tiny. There we go. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you all in my next book review or book related video. See if I think of something else to say after this is over, because that happens to me all the goddamn time. I'm a livid. 13 by Steve Kavanaugh. Buy it and read it now. I promise you won't be disappointed. Bye guys.